Okay, I think I got it. Guys, we're literally compared to animals. And especially because there's like people of color among us, that's pretty racist. Just saying.
Not sure what she's doing.
Okay, as soon as our clerk returns, we'll be ready to start.
And at least one seat in the front, if anybody wants it.
Well, there's one over there. And there are seats on the second row here. I think some people.
Yep.
The whole back row is open.
The whole back row is open.
Come on in, folks.
Well, we don't have many out in the foyer right now. Someone just stopped our clerk with a question. Okay, we're ready to start. Welcome, Ms. Arnett. We haven't seen you since you returned, so welcome back to the U.S. soil. Having traveled abroad, I know that it's always nice to get back to U.S. soil. Yeah. So, and we are glad to have you here with us tonight. That even though we summoned you, but you still had a choice. So we're glad that you chose to come. We're going to ask the clerk now to swear you in, please.
Beth Arnett, can I confirm that I do solemnly affirm and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right?
Thank you. Would we like to go in the same order, or would we like to switch up? Okay. Councilman Murdoch. Pardon? Okay, Councilmember, would you like to provide an opening statement? No, thank you. No, okay.
Oh, okay. Based on the information that was disclosed to council, you were called by Jinping Zhu, president of the Wayne State CSSA, offering to fund the trip. Did you ask Mr. Zhu how his organization became the city's desire to travel?
I did.
And what did he say?
He, as I stated, he said he was aware of our desire to travel and that his organization is dedicated to providing cultural exchange with China and that they would be able to fund scholarships for us to travel in order to experience the culture while we were there.
All right, maybe I read my question wrong. Did you ask Mr. Zhu how his organization became aware of the city's desire to travel to China?
I did not.
Okay, I totally asked wrong.
Can you repeat the question?
And the question was, did you ask Mr. Zhu how his organization became aware of the city's desire to travel to China? Based on the information that was disclosed to council, there are no written communications with Mr. Zhu, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you have further communication with Mr. Zhu between when you spoke with him at the end of August and when the city received the scholarship letter?
Yes. As I stated, Mr. Zhu had prepared a letter, asked for my review. He had sent it to me by text. I reviewed it, I returned it to him, and that's the extent.
Did you ever ask Mr. Zhu what was the source of the money?
I did not.
You said tickets were purchased on September 10th, but based on the information that was disclosed to council, the tickets were actually purchased on September 5th. The city didn't receive the letter of funding from Wayne State CSSA until the 7th, even though it was dated the 6th. Did it not seem unusual to you that the tickets were purchased prior to the scholarships being awarded?
It is not my knowledge that the tickets were purchased on the 5th.
Okay, I'm just looking at the packet. Channel Shanrong forwarded all the information to Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Foster on the 5th.
It was sent to review names, spelling, and the dates.
But that has the reservation code with it, so whether you get a reservation code, that's a confirmation code. All right, that's not a problem. How do you learn the consulate funds and transfer to the developer before going to Wayne State CSSA?
While I was in China and received a text from Manager McCleary and had a discussion with him, I was then directed to discuss it with the development team that we were traveling with. At that time, I was informed that consulates typically fund student organizations and that there had been an ask to fund in this case.
That's everything I bring now.
Okay. So you're reserving your 2 minutes, or? All right, Councilmember Vogt.
Hindsight question, what should you have done differently to prevent this whole brouhaha? You know, to deal with preventing the uncertainty, the suspicions, etc., to make this a smooth situation? What should somebody else in the city, if anybody else affected, what should any of us have done differently?
I understand. I believe that's an opinion question, and I don't want to get into personnel matters, but to give you a general answer, I would have taken the funds from the LDFA.
The LDFA?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
The Local Development Funding Authority, Financing Authority.
Okay. And, well, let me be a little more fussy with you then. Part of the problem is there was an assertion that the council had provided money. Do you think we should have checked that out more specifically? Or what should we have asked the student organization where they got their money?
Again, I would prefer to answer questions and give opinions.
Okay. Did you have any kind of agreement or understanding with anyone to take the trip, or get the gift of the trip, so to speak, the funding for the trip, in return for some influence of your decision-making or your influence to council on the International Village?
Absolutely not.
Do you have any facts to suggest that anyone else did so?
No.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Bashir.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your conversations with the CSSA about the funding source? You said that they would fund it, they explained why, and that you did not ask where they get their money from. Is that correct?
Correct.
Why did you not ask?
Because it's not a practice I would have had. So we, as a city, we receive grants on a pretty regular basis, and I have not previously investigated a funding source.
So, but this is different from other grants in several ways, because there's an ethics issue related to it, related to, careers and, projects and things like that. So, it didn't occur to you didn't have any questions about it?
The student group was associated with Wayne State University under their charter. That provided me the solace to trust in their organization. As as a educational organization, I did assume, and I'll take that back, I did assume that they are regulated by the university, which I believe is held to the same standards that we as a municipality are.
Gotcha. So there was a lot of conversations about how my understanding when you left was that it was funded by the student organization. Then I heard that it was really funded by the consulate, and so can you tell me? And there's absolutely no information related to the consulate in the packet that we received. To your knowledge, was the consulate ever involved in this at all?
Direct knowledge, I have none.
Do you know where we got the impression that it was funded by the consulate? Where was that?
From a discussion with the development team while in China, it was expressed that the Chinese consulate funds student groups and their activities. That's how that information came to me while I was in China.
And then tell me about the LDFA question. You would have taken that money. What did the LDFA offer?
My conversations with Fred Molnar of the MEDC was that traveling would be a soft cost of the LDFA and therefore eligible under our funding rules.
Can you tell me why you didn't pursue that money?
Because I felt that, this is my opinion, I felt that the LDFA was still public funds. I felt that there was a desire not to use public funds, and I felt that an educational group would have been better.
Public funds.
Tell me about what your concerns were about public funds.
There has been a lot of scrutiny over the use of public money and public dollars, regardless if they're TIF dollars or if they are direct generated tax dollars. With that, with the public sentiment of not using tax dollars for multiple purposes, I felt it was safer to use a separate public funding, a separate group, than to use public funds.
Doesn't make much sense to me, but I'm going to move away from that one for now. Did you ever see the check that went to the travel agency?
Yeah.
Okay, you saw the check physically?
Yeah, no, I received a copy of
You
it.
just received a copy?
Yes.
Okay, when did you receive that copy?
I believe. September 8th.
Okay. And because it's a certified check, it doesn't say who it's from, and it goes right, it's passed through directly to the travel agency. This is my last question. So, did you know where the check came from at that time? Other than that it just came? I mean, how did it arrive to the, how did it arrive? Did it arrive in the mail? Did it have a return address? I mean, was it delivered by hand? How did the check arrive?
I don't
Okay.
have no direct knowledge.
Okay, so the money went directly to the travel agency without the city ever seeing it. Period, is that what we're saying?
I received a copy
Okay,
of the check.
okay, great, thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, quick follow-up on that. The check was a cashier's check certified check. It wasn't from the student.
I'm not aware of that.
That's what the copy says.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The check is a certified
It's a cashier's.
cashier's check. Anybody with $16,000 in paper sack can walk in and get that check. It's signed. It's not off the student account, that's all I'm saying. So we don't know who.
The check that's provided provides the treasurer of the organization's name. In the subject section, I see that you did not receive a good copy of this. But there is an account number on the check, on the bottom portion of that check.
That wasn't clear to me. All right.
Right. Copy we have, we can't see.
Yeah, I see that now.
I think it was stated, that you stated you first learned of the Chinese consulate involvement from the development team the night of the September 19th city council meeting. The mayor also said she was informed that time. The city manager said he was not. Is that true when you were first informed of the Chinese consulate connection?
Yes, you're correct. It was discussed the night of the council meeting.
But it was a conversation.
It was a conversation. It was not a vetting. It was a conversation to say that consulates, the Chinese consulate funds.
The council member was informed of that.
I'm sorry.
Council was never informed of the consulate connection until you were in China and the back and forth emails.
Correct.
That came forward. Okay, and I think you've answered this, to your knowledge, no, you or anyone else in the city never had any direct contact with the Chinese consulate on the funding issue. You had some visa connections.
I had contact with the
So
consulate.
the only discussion of the Chinese consulate basically came from the development.
Correct.
And when you were in China, you said, I think we got this from email from the city manager, from a phone call you had, so with him, that the International Village development was supposed to receive the money from Chinese consulate, and it was supposed to go to the students, but you didn't know if it did.
So that's not my recollection of the conversation. The recollection of the conversation was the International Development Group has had contact with the Chinese consulate.
I know, but it is time for the consulate, we need to know.
The consulate funds, again, it was the same thing. I've said the consulate funds student groups. So I'm not aware of a specific check that was not within my knowledge.
But you asked them to contact the consulate, I think, and they came back and told you what?
That the consulate would not be making any statement regarding their funding of student organizations.
Did that raise your eyebrows?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so with information that we have after the fact, kind of, it seems that there was no Chinese consulate grant or money. That was, by your conversation, they weren't going to say anything, and by an email to Tom Perkins, they said they weren't involved, and the message to Amanda, the LinkedIn message, said the funding came from the International Village Developers. That changed our whole thinking on the funding of this trip, make it different than what it was before you left.
Yes, it makes me very concerned.
I don't know where to go after that one at this point.
We got
So,
2 more minutes.
All right, in looking at the, your responses and the conversation that you had, or the email that you sent to to Mr. Barr. I had a couple of questions. One was, you refer often in the email to the development team. Who exactly was on your development team? When you say development team, who are you exactly referring to?
The development team, I'm referring to International Village.
Okay, so, all right, so we'll just call them, okay. And that included who?
Amy Foster and Hal Edwards. And Alan Green.
Okay, so that was Amy, Alan, and Harold? Hal.
And I would add to when I refer to development team, I'd also be referring to Wayne Hoffman of Spence Brothers.
Okay. So that would be the 5 of you, when you say, or you just.
No, I don't refer
It
to
says
myself
NBC,
as
our
the development
CRP team also suggested having the development team pay, so you're speaking specifically of those 4.
Yes.
Pay for the trip. Okay, so here you go on to say that, for the trip, and you discussed this with Darwin, and he agreed with pursuing the funding from LDFA. So, and you're saying that you didn't want to go that way because it was public funding?
Yes.
Okay, but, okay. I have a couple of other questions here. Did you ever specifically, and maybe you answered this, talk to the young man at the CSSA, or was it all?
Yes,
You spoke to him personally?
yes.
And you never talked to him about where they got the money from specifically for this trip?
I did not.
Okay, because some of the scuttlebutt is that they had absolutely no funds, so it never occurred to you to say, okay, where are you getting, the funds to do this?
No.
Okay. If you had it to do over again, would you do it the exact same way?
No.
And why?
Again, that's an opinion. I would prefer not to give opinions, but as I said earlier, I would have pursued the LDFA funding.
But what has brought you to that decision that you would have pursued the LDFA?
The unknown sources of the money.
Did you and the other travelers ever, talk about the money? How did that group of travelers come about, particularly that went?
2 questions, I'll go backwards. The particular group of travelers was a discussion that came about following the May 23rd meeting in which traveling to China was discussed. At that time, it was discussed that there should be representation from City Council, City staff, and Public Safety. And it proceeded from there.
Let me ask, who was privy to that particular conversation that you just mentioned?
There were council members present following that meeting. The city manager was present. It was discussed with the city manager.
So it was an after council meeting?
It was an after council discussion.
Okay, go on with it. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
I didn't break your chain of thought.
Excuse me, after which meeting was that?
The May 23rd. I don't recall what your first question was, I'm sorry.
Oops. I'm trying to think of what the first question was. Oh, did you ever have, did the travelers have a conversation about the trip?
There were, as seen in emails, there were conversations with the mayor as well as Mayor Pro Tem about the funding. Again, I expressed that it was a student organization under the guise of Wayne State University. We've accepted multiple university scholarships or grants in the past, so I felt comfortable with the university being involved.
Okay. You mentioned the mayor and the mayor pro tem. Was the police chief privy to those conversations and discussions also?
Not to my recollection.
Not to your recollection, okay. So, I recall at the town hall that I hosted back, and months just go together for me. But it was this summer. And I remember that was the first time I heard any mention of any traveling, because we talked about it, the question came up, and you at that meeting said that you corrected me because I said that no one was traveling because we couldn't take the money from the developers. And you corrected me and you said that 2 were going. You said, yes, there's 2 of us traveling. So when did the other 2, and I don't know what 2 you were referring to, or when did the other 2 come on board?
That's not my recollection. I do recall the question being asked, and my recollection is saying that travel was being researched or travel was being looked at. I don't recall saying 2 people. I recall answering the question, and I do recall correcting you and saying that we were looking into travel options. I do not recall saying 2.
Okay, I just thought I heard in memory, but yeah.
I recall the question pretty candidly.
Okay, but you did state
that travel was
travel, okay,
considered.
So it wasn't just near the end that, and I guess it was not September the 11th that council really received final information about the trip. So could you tell us why the rest of council wasn't kept informed all along the way?
I don't know that I can answer why council wasn't kept informed throughout. However, it wasn't kept secret. It was discussed. It was discussed in an email chain, and I don't want to take up your time, but I could show where it was discussed after Mr. Bars sent his memorandum. It was discussed about pursuing grant funding. Immediately following, I believe you also, and there was another part to that question. It was intended to go out on Friday, the 9th, I believe. And Manager McCleary was unavailable to review the information. We had discussed it throughout the week about sending information to council, and then I do believe his husband had had surgery and he was not in the office, so that did delay notification.
And I guess I brought that question up because in going through the emails, I noticed that there were several emails that were not sent to all of council, but were sent to, my 2 minutes are up? Okay, thank you, I'll stop.
Motion to extend.
I didn't realize, I heard the beep, but I thought that was my problem. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yes, Councilmember Vicky.
I do, yeah.
You want your 2 minutes?
I want my 2 minutes.
Okay.
Beth, let's talk about that email that was delayed because of Mr. McCleary's being out of the office. And what he said was that you read it to him in the absence so that you could send it out in a timely manner, okay? And did you read him the email in its entirety? Including the travel chain about where it had been come from and the source of the email, that kind of thing?
not quite understanding your question. I had prepared an email and sent it to Darwin. And he did not, he wasn't getting emails, he was in the hospital. I called him the next day and read him the email to be sent out.
So what is it?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. We're giving, I'm done with my 2 minutes, yeah.
Councilmember
There
Mayor.
was a question about the letter from the student group.
Okay.
And it went through, went to Amy Foster, then to Wayne, then to you, kind of thing.
Oh.
And I think that's what you was getting
That's
at,
the email, yeah.
was that whole chain discussed with the city manager or not. We didn't get that whole chain, it was sent to us either, I mean, until this batch of stuff.
Well, as I said, I received the letter via text, and then received it again the next, or the same day, I think, possibly. On or around the same day, it was the day before or that day. No, that was not read to manager.
Was there, what reason in your thinking would that letter from the student group saying they wanted to fund this trip or were willing to fund this trip not come directly to the city and go through the development? And that,
Well,
that's curious.
I had received it by text, but I'm unable to print that directly. It wasn't concerning to me at the time because for travel arrangements purposes, there was, at that point, I had put in contact with the travel agencies and the developer, Amy Foster. So it didn't strike me as odd at the time.
If I can follow up on that.
Yes.
It sounds like you're telling me that the student organization sent the letter to a couple different sources at the same time.
Yes.
People who are interested in their decision. One of them was the developer.
Correct.
One of them was you.
Correct.
All right. So I want to go back briefly to, forgive me if I missed something. I think you said there were 2 times when the idea of the consulate funding or providing the money or providing scholarships came up. One was at a council meeting and one was on the trip. Is that correct?
Correct.
At the council meeting, that was the 19th of September?
Correct.
And who was it that said that? Who provided that information first? Do you remember?
No, I know who was talking. The people standing there was myself, the mayor, Alan Green, Hal Edwards, and Amy Foster.
So 3 of the 5 are the development team.
Yes,
Anybody else?
not to my recollection.
And on the trip, who was part of the conversation or who was present at the conversation? Who provided that information?
It was myself, Amy Foster, and Hal Edwards.
And so who provided the information about the
Amy
council?
Foster.
Okay, that's all.
Do you like your 2 minutes?
Yeah. I want to go back to the tickets.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let's just, okay, so based on the information we have, it seems that the tickets were purchased on the 5th. They were not sent to you until the 10th, and then you immediately sent them on to the people who they were for. You know, within 10, 15 minutes, you sent them to the mayor and mayor pro tem, et cetera. Now, you say they were purchased. The information that's shown on the 5th was for checking of names or something like that, but that was never sent to you on the 10th. Is there an email? Are we missing an email where people responded by saying, yeah, my name is spelled correctly, or?
I checked the names.
But what about?
Potentially.
The travel agency sent them to Ms. Foster on the 5th, then Ms. Foster then sent them to you on the 10th.
Correct. I see that.
So,
I received the email on the 10th.
right. In the information you provided the council, you said the tickets were purchased on the 10th, but
To my knowledge.
I still guess I'm confused because the email says they were purchased on the 5th. It was just oversight or confusion or something. Okay. All right. That's all.
Councilmember,
The representative from the student organization, I'm forgetting his name, was it Lee or
Jinping Ju.
Zhu? You emailed him, you talked to him on the phone, have you ever met him?
No.
Okay, do you know anything about him, age, background, is he an immigrant, is he Native American?
I do not know.
Do you have any sense of his, for lack of a better way to put it, his experience and sophistication in dealing with communications and business matters?
My experience with him is he's a college student. So I think that would indicate that probably his experience in dealing with business matters is slim.
You know nothing about his employment history, his major, that's all, thanks.
all right.
I have more of experience.
Yes. Councilmember, it's yours, go ahead.
At the council meeting on Tuesday the 19th, after the meeting, when you had the conversation, you and the mayor and the developer,
It was prior to the meeting.
well, prior to the meeting, okay, where you were informed about the consulate funding connection. Just that city council was not notified of that afterwards. Was the city manager notified of that?
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Why not?
Because I did not see a connection with how student groups are funded as a concern. If student groups are funded by the consulate as a normal procedure, it didn't strike me in any way as odd or concerning.
Okay, well, I could go with some questions after that, but we did set our rules of procedure, so I want to try to follow those, although I didn't hear that statement in itself raised some questions for me. Would you like to give a closing statement?
I would not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Is there public comment?
No, this is not public comment time. We will have public comment time after we've done all of this. Could someone please?
yeah, move to extend the midnight.
Thank you. All in favor?
We need to have another one of these to ask more questions. They don't have enough time to ask me what they need to do.
Yeah, you know, those undergraduates are really.
Is there any podium?
We should all stand up. Have you seen American Candle?
You know, people are texting me like that.
Conversations outside. You don't have to stop talking, but you can't talk in here.
Well, we've been doing it.
Well, Chief, welcome back. We had this is our first time seeing you back on U.S. soil, so glad to have you back. Thank you, safe and sound. And thank you for coming in and willing to talk with us about your trip. So we're going to. Would you like to make a statement? Not this time. Not at this time, okay. Let's see. Why don't I start with Councilmember Vogt?
How did you get involved in going on the trip? Did you volunteer or were you volunteered?
This goes all the way back to February. Amy, Buster, and Hal Edwards, I think it's were one of the first.
Excuse me, Chief. I see people straining to hear in the back. Could you maybe pull your, hold the mic or pull it closer or something? Thank you. Yeah, all right, that's better. Thank you.
All the way back in February, I had a meeting with Beth Burnett, Amy Foster, and Hal Edwards regarding the prospect of having some kind of development on Water Street. At that point in time, I was involved because they were concerned with some of the safety issues they perceived in the city of Ypsi. So I was pretty much involved right from the beginning. I met with them several times over the course from then till now with an architectural team that was here at one point to tour the site. So I've been kind of involved in that public safety aspect of the project from the beginning.
So the developer is concerned about public safety. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
The developer mentioned investor concern about safety?
Yes.
Okay. And did anyone, the city manager, anyone direct you to be involved?
No.
Okay.
No, I was invited by Beth Burnett.
All right. Okay. Do you have any factual knowledge that anybody involved from the city side, yourself or others, had an agreement or understanding to make any particular decision in return for this trip?
No, I do not.
That's all.
Councilmember Bishop.
I feel like you were kind of further out of the loop than many of the others. That's the impression that I get. Okay. That said, in one of your comments, you state that that you knew that the trip was being planned, that there were ethics issues related to how it was funded. That's pretty much standard procedure for, expense with the city, correct?
Correct.
And that Mr. Nat approached you at one point and said that she had found the student organization that would fund the trip.
Yes.
Okay. And did you, when she tell me about the conversation when she told you that, did you ask any follow-up questions? What was the conversation like?
I have a loose recollection of exactly what was said, but along the way, there was some discussion that Spark was going to fund the trip, and then somewhere in between that and the trip is, and I didn't know it was a student organization at the time, but I knew it was through Wayne State and it was a group having to do with Chinese studies. I wasn't exactly sure what the organization was, and I did question further, knowing whether or not to be an honest person of integrity. I had no reason to question anything that he was.
When did you hear, what was the information flow about what you did hear about the funding? What was the first year that you said you just got it? And then did you hear anything? What was the second piece of information that you got? Third, can you kind of walk me through what you learned and when you learned it in a big picture?
In the loose time frame, somewhere towards, I want to say the middle of August, there was some talk about some confirmed dates. There was some conversation about immunizations, customs and traditions that should be observed, some things of that nature. And then I believe on the 10th of September, I received an email and the actual flight itinerary was attached to that email. Is that the question you're asking?
That was the question, yeah. Well, actually, no. I mean, when you found out that the trip was a go, okay, did they tell you how it was paid for?
No. Other than the conversation I had prior to when I knew it was a go, that the Chinese group from the state was funding the trip.
Okay. Now, you never heard any follow-up information after that?
Not collectively or in time.
I have no further questions.
Councilmember Murdoch.
Yeah, I don't have
I do something you said kind of stirred up some questions. You said you started meeting with the developers in February?
Yes.
Okay, and was that at their request?
I don't know that they requested it. I know that they had expressed some concerns about public safety in the city. So I was invited to the meeting by Ms. Arnott. I don't know if they specifically asked that I be there or not. I don't know.
Okay, so this was a meeting with Ms. Arnett and others,
Yes.
and the developers that you attended?
Yes.
Okay. And the developers asked you to make the trip to China?
No.
No? Okay.
Not directly, no.
Okay,
They
so
never
how
asked
did,
me.
pardon?
They never asked me personally, no.
Okay, all right. When did you know that there was some concern about the financing of the trip?
I want to say it was 4 or 5 days into the trip itself. I had heard about an article that was written in the Metro Times and some conversation was stirred up by that. But up till then, I had no idea if anybody had any questions about it. I knew that the email had gone out advising council. I knew that the city manager knew about the trip. I had no reason to think there was anything wrong with the financing.
Okay. There was nothing that caused you, I mean, other than the fact that the statement had come from the city manager quoting Ms. Attorney Barr, that the funds couldn't come from International Village. Nothing, and then all of a sudden the funds were made available. Nothing about that kind of struck you like, oh, where'd the money come from?
No, because I knew that there were other funding options that Ms. Arnott was speculating with and trying to decide what was most appropriate to use. So no, it really didn't surprise me.
It really didn't surprise you. All right. I thank you for your forthcoming in answering the questions that were given to you ahead of time. So I know, I'm not done yet. We're gonna, I'm coming your way. So, but thank you for those, for your answers. And I'll go over to Mr. Barr. I've got 2.5 minutes left. I'm sorry, Councilmember Rob.
Yes, it'll be quick. Were you ever sent the letter from Wayne State Student Association announcing the scholarship?
No, it was not.
So,
That's the only question?
yeah, a follow-up question doesn't mean anything.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for the chief? Thank you so much. Do you have, would you like to make a statement now?
No.
No? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. It's finally cleared. Yes. Is it set to go off at 10 o'clock?
No, it's 7 after, so that doesn't work.
Well, this clock, we can let this clock in. It's 10. Is she far? I think she's good. Would you see if you can get her, please? Thank you.
I'm Nicole Brown, City of Ypsi Mayor Pro Tem. City of Ypsi Mayor Pro Tem. Do solemnly affirm. Do solemnly affirm. To tell the truth. To tell the truth. The whole truth. The whole truth. And nothing but the truth. And nothing.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming to sit before us and respond to questions that we have for you. We know that you have a choice to come or not to come, but we're glad that you did decide to come. So we do have some questions that we would like to ask you, and we hope that you will answer them openly and honestly with us. Thank you. All right. And we'll start with Councilman Bishop. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Would you like to have an open statement? Everybody's been refusing, I think that's why. No, but you're right. Thank you for that. I stand corrected.
So, I'm interested in some of the verbal conversations that aren't covered by the videos that were distributed, okay? When were you first invited onto the trip to China?
So officially, the first invite was when the presentation happened at council, and everybody was told that they would want to take members of staff and or council to China to visit. And,
back in May?
Back in May.
Okay. Okay, cool. And when did you find out that you were going to be one of the travelers?
Let's see. I didn't know that I was going to be one of the travelers officially until I was asked to provide preemptively my information for the visa. But we did have conversation after that meeting in May, and during the meeting actually was asked, when it was brought up, there were members of council who said, yeah, I would be interested in going. And so I knew that I had put myself out there as one of the people who would want to go. It wasn't official for quite some time after that.
Okay. And then, tell me when, so you heard you were going to go on the trip, and that people were searching for money, right? And then the first news we got, when did you find out, verbally or by email, that the Wayne State Group was going to pay for the trip?
That was verbal. When I was, when Beth was inquiring about potential dates that would work, I did ask questions around where the funding was coming from, because we did receive the email from Mr. Barr stating that it would be unethical to take the money from the developer. And so it wasn't until nearly in that time that I actually knew that it was coming from the CSSA. Prior to that, I had inquired and called and asked questions about it just to see where things were going, if it was actually going to be viable or not. And I was told that she was speaking with Spark, MEDC, and LDFA, but that none of those things were a definitive funding source.
And did you hear anything about the consulate?
No, I was, we were already in China for about 4 days before I had ever heard anything about the Chinese consulate.
There was a mention at City Council before the trip of the consulate. You weren't involved in that mention?
No, I was not.
You didn't hear that? Okay. That's all the questions I have at this time. I'm good.
And Councilmember Murdoch?
You said you were made aware of the student group funding verbally. What was the time frame of that?
It was in mid-August, well, late August actually, when we were discussing potential dates for the trip.
Thanks.
No further questions? Thank you. Councilmember?
All right. So, obviously, the turmoil, the suspicions, the speculations that have come about from this are unpleasant, unhappy. Is there something that you think you or anyone else in the city could have done differently to handle the situation better, to prevent this kind of problem, particularly to identify the source of the money earlier? This is a hindsight question. I'm asking for your thoughts on this.
I mean, I don't really have a great answer for that, but I would say that if I had known the funding source earlier, then could have inquired earlier about it. When I found the funding source, I talked to the mayor about it, and she had already told me that she was going to reach out to them to find out more information, and so we awaited that information and did not receive it to my knowledge. I think that, yeah, we could have done maybe more due diligence, but you know, since I've been in this role, I've trusted staff. When they give us direction, there are not many times that, you know, I felt that they would steer us in the wrong direction or do anything that would be unethical or present any unethical behavior. And so I did that in this situation. And so I don't know if I would call that a mistake, because I trust staff and their expertise about many, many things. But I guess I could have delved into it deeper myself if I could have in hindsight.
I appreciate that. How about anyone else? Is there any thoughts you've had that would suggest something we could have, anybody, council, city manager, anybody might have done a little different than they
Well, absolutely. I think that, you know, finding out that questions had arisen once we were already in China, I think that that was a misstep of the entire council. I think that if there were questions, these questions didn't come about 5 days after we were gone. Some of these questions must have been, you know, circling around in someone's head maybe about what the funding source really was prior to the trip. And so I would have hoped that my peers also would have asked them before we went, and not also allowed us to continue going on if there were, you know, speculative questions that were unethical behavior on the part of the city or staff or council, whomever. So I think the body as a whole, we could, and I've said this before, communicate better, because these questions were never brought to me. I never received any communication of any inquiries or speculation around funding issues prior to our departure.
Did you have any agreement or understanding with anyone to affect or promise your vote or influence or decision-making concerning the International Village in return for this trip?
Absolutely not.
Do you have any facts to suggest that anyone else did?
No, sir.
That's all.
Councilmember Rock.
Did you ever receive the funding letter or the funding letter from Wayne State University CSSA?
No, I did not receive that letter until I received the council packet.
You say that you knew in late August that you were going to be going on the trip. Okay. There's been lots of talk about, transparency, and we talked a little bit, we've asked some others, one of others about a question leaning this way that, and you made in your statement that one of your answers that you felt that all of council should have asked questions before. Going through the emails, council, and all council wasn't really fully privy to all of that was going on around the trip, until we got the emails. Because there were some emails that were specifically to the 4 travelers. So there's some things that, some reasons why council couldn't have. And you say that you would like to see more, the word that you used is escaping me, but better, for lack of a better word, communication between council. But do you have, does it bother you that, did it bother you when you received emails regarding the trip and the preemptiveness of getting the visa, what you needed to get the visa on? It didn't bother you that it wasn't, that those emails weren't coming to all of council?
I didn't think about that, to be honest, because I knew that at that point, the idea of the trip had already been expressed to all of council, so I honestly did not consider the email asking for the items for the visa to be on order. I guess that could have been something that could have been shared with everyone, absolutely. But it wasn't something that I thought about at that time, no.
Well, there were also other, I noticed other emails that were strictly pretty much privy to just the travelers. So, and I know once you got into it, some of those were things that maybe council didn't have to answer directly to, but so that didn't concern you at all either.
Many of those emails that you are discussing came after the email to all of council came out that we were going on the trip. The only emails that I have that were not also sent to council were those emails after that. The one from Mr. Barr giving us some information, and then the hotel information and such were sent. So there weren't really other emails, as you stated, that would have needed council consideration. And a lot of them were reply emails as well, not initiated, just to those people.
Even though they wouldn't have needed council's, as you say, consideration, just for the sake of transparency, you don't think, yeah.
I mean, they could have been, absolutely.
All right. And you said you learned of the dates that you were going to be going late August?
We discussed potential dates, late August.
Okay. Then when did you actually settle on the dates that you would be the travel dates?
Either later in the same day that we were discussing, but we didn't know for sure until I received the ticket itinerary in an email on the 10th.
When did you receive that?
September 10th.
September 10th, you received that, okay. And I believe Councilmember Rob found an email where the reservations and tickets were actually purchased on September 5th.
Yeah, I actually indicated in my responses that I also saw the date of September 5th in the previous email, the forwarding email, but I did not receive any of that until September 10th. So okay. I haven't known anything prior to that.
All right, and I don't really know who this question should have gone to, but in going through the emails, there were several that I noticed that there was just no message there. It was from somebody to somebody, but then the message wasn't there. And I did put question marks in those places, but I just thought that was quite, disconcerting, you know, okay, who said what, who was really, what was the person really saying, you know, so, about the trip. Did you, while you were on the trip, was there any, conversation with the development team about who actually paid for the trip? Did that come up at all?
I was not a part of the conversation with the development team around that. I got that information from talking to the mayor that the Chinese consulate was involved. I did not have direct conversation with them around it.
Okay. So how did you learn while you were on the trip? How did you learn that there was, oh gosh, big stir back home?
I heard from Beth, from the mayor.
From the Beth?
Yeah,
Okay.
Beth told the mayor, and then I was brought into it afterwards.
So did the four travelers ever sit down and have a conversation about that?
No.
No? All right, right now, I'll stop and save my time, please. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Just kind of a question, comment, I guess. You had mentioned that you wished all these questions had come up before you left the trip. So, if you're not aware, City Council only had two communications about this trip. One, May 24th, the City Attorney's opinion, and the September 11th memo saying you were going and the student group was paying for it. It came up after you left when we got an email from the city manager saying there was an inquiry by Tom Perkins asking about the funding source, and that was on the 25th, 26th, 27th. That's where that came from. You know, that's how that timing came up. So, and whether we had questions about the funding source beforehand or not, and that isn't what facilitated that.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question? I wanted to go back and ask you to clarify your statements about the blank spaces in the emails, because I'm not aware of where those are, if those are in my emails.
Oh, I'm not, no, I said I can't, you know, pinpoint exactly which email, but there were blanks, and I did inquire of the clerk today, and those, and I didn't, in my conversation with Mr. Duchesne, I didn't get a chance to ask him, but there are several emails where there's just no message there.
Well, I just
So
wanted
did others see that? Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that I forwarded my emails directly to Mr. Duchesne, so if there are blank spaces, I'm not aware of how that would happen, but I do not.
And I'm not saying it was you.
You brought up the statement, so I just wanted to answer.
Any other questions? Any questions? Councilmember Lowe or Councilmember Brown? Okay, would you like to make a statement? Thank you.
Is that in the mayor's document?
Someone's the name, please.
If what? Are they not supposed to
So I'm just trying to follow up on this concern. So, right, the individuals provided their information to our office. Our office then scanned it in order to send it to the clerk. So I think, for instance, the check issue might be an issue with our copy machine, I think. But to my knowledge, there should be no reason for any blank spaces. I did do a cursory review of the information is submitted to make sure it looked right formatting wise, but I'll double check to see if there's some error in our machine, but I don't think that came from our end.
Okay, thank you. Are we waiting on?
She said she's coming.
It might have been too big.
Right, that's what,
Rather than be lazy, I just like.
I kept saying that too, print the PDF, yeah. That didn't- Hello, Mayor.
Hello.
Good. Glad to see you.
Deputy Amanda Edmonds.
Amanda Edmonds.
Mayor of the City of Ypsi.
Mayor of the City of Ypsi.
Do affirm to tell the truth.
Do affirm to tell the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
All right, good to see you, and glad that you're seemingly feeling better.
Seemingly feeling better, yes.
I hope that that's true, that you are feeling better.
Doing my best.
All right, good, very good. And thank you for coming to respond to questions, and we know that you had a choice, but we are glad that you chose to come.
Yeah, it took a couple days to unravel a work trip that had been long planned, but as you guys knew on Friday, I was planning to attend.
Okay, thank you. Council, you said what's that? Yeah. Would you like to make an open statement?
No, thank you though.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Rob, would you like to start?
Okay, based on the information that was disclosed to council, you did not receive an email showing the tickets were purchased until September 10th. However, you received all the emails showing the tickets were actually purchased on September 5th. The city didn't receive a letter of funding from Wayne State Student Association until the 7th, even though it was dated the 6th. Did it not seem unusual to you that the tickets were purchased prior to the scholarships being awarded?
I didn't notice that date until afterwards when this came up. I saw the email on the 10th saying there are tickets, so I said, I guess this is really a thing, we're actually going. I received verbal word around the 6th, and then we got the letter on something like the 7th.
You learned that the scholarship money passed through the developer on the evening of Tuesday, September 26th, China Standard Time, is that correct?
It was sometime during our trip when Beth said that she had talked to the developer and that the money that had been from the consulate passed through developer. She told us that. I don't remember if it was morning or evening. I think it was the hotel lobby. I remember her telling us that.
Okay, and my next question is, how did you learn this when you learned this from Ms. Ernest?
Ms. Ernest let us know that, yep.
So someone filed a FOIA on the 13th of September, and you responded to that. You've got kudos for being the first person to respond to that. And you forwarded the response, your email that you sent to several students about the source of the funding.
Yeah, I found a generic. I had done research on to try to find contact information around for the organization. I found one generic email address, and I sent to that address to some names. I think I found on their website of maybe people who were part of the organization, or maybe on a Facebook page I found their names. So yep, I forwarded that.
But also on that same day, you sent a LinkedIn message to a specific person.
Yeah, same that I found either on the website or Facebook page, someone who was listed as president. The letter notifying of the scholarships didn't have a name or contact info, so I just sort of did my own internet searching till I could find ways to reach out.
But on the 13th, when the FOIA was requested, you forwarded the email, but you didn't forward the LinkedIn message. And did it not trigger you that you should check your LinkedIn message to see if there was a response?
You know, I was out of town at a conference forwarding from my phone, and I don't use LinkedIn on my phone, so I didn't think of that. I was at the MML conference from the 12th of September of the evening till the evening of the 15th, that Friday night. So I was just trying to respond as quickly as possible, and so searched emails, etc., for the FOIA request.
And I guess, I think my last question is, so when did you finally read that LinkedIn message?
Like Tuesday, we got home late Monday night the 2nd, and Tuesday, October 3rd, I saw it, and as I noted in the packet, LinkedIn seems to have settings that make that something that will be verifiable.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Councilmember Vogt.
So, yeah, this is my standard hindsight question.
Okay.
There's probably a number of things you have in mind now that you wish that you had done differently or that others in the city had done differently. Take us through those. What could we have done better? What could you have done better? Other people could have done better. Not as a judgmental thing, this is a practical thing. To prevent the misunderstandings, to prevent suspicion, to identify the problems sooner.
Yeah, so the trip wasn't a trip until we had funding for it. It was getting pretty nerve-wracking to not know if some dates we had held on our calendar was going to actually happen. So it came up very shortly. The trip got confirmed very shortly before it actually happened, and that was, I wish it had gotten confirmed earlier, just for schedule and life planning purposes. So I did what I felt like it was helpful, even though Ms. Ernett had said that the funding from the student organization didn't originate through IB, the International Village, which was my first question. That I thought the public and myself would want to know where it came from, so I reached out the ways that I could find to do so to find that out. If we had had more time, I would have reached out further. I found the information that I could before I left and felt good about that, but if other people had questions, no one asked me those questions. That was just my own wanting to understand that before I left. So if we had had more time, that would have been great. So I didn't think of that as an ethical issue because our legal department, our city manager, no one had said, this is a question. I just wanted to know because I think it's helpful to understand the more the most that you can about it, any source of funding.
Did you know anything about the student organization or the people in that organization?
No,
CSSA?
No, I did. When we learned CSSA, I Googled CSSA. I looked up their Facebook page. It wasn't particularly active. Their website was mostly in Mandarin. I tried some Google Translate chunks that really wasn't successful. So I didn't find, and I saw, I think on the Wayne State University, like student activities, they had maybe some brief little profile, but I didn't find a lot of information about them. I didn't have any knowledge of them personally. I found some Googling. I also looked across the country at CSSA organizations overall, just because in Googling I found that they exist otherwise with that same acronym, CSSA. And so I was just doing general research on those organizations. Did I answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
So apparently there were, well, let me ask you.
Yeah.
When did the idea that the Chinese consulate had provided money first come up?
Yeah, so since I had not seen any word back from the email I had sent, I had not seen that LinkedIn, so I still wanted to understand that before I left, and so I called Amy Foster. I think she was en route to the meeting. She was in the car, I mentioned in my note, with Hal Edwards, although I'm not positive she wasn't also with Alan Green, because I didn't know until later that night that Hal and Al weren't the same person, because I think met them that night. But Amy is the one who told me while they were driving that there had been an application to the Chinese consulate for funding, and that jived with this research I had sort of done and learned across the country that the CSSA organizations are closely tied in various ways, including financially, in general to the Chinese consulate.
Was there any other conversation at that meeting, the council meeting, or after, or otherwise?
I passed that information off. We got there. I don't remember the whole thing about moving the screen and making extra chairs, etc. So I shared that with Ms. Ernett at least, and I don't remember what other. Maybe they were also standing there, but there was no further information. But I passed that information on that I had learned in the phone call before the meeting.
Do you remember any other conversations about the consulate providing money or scholarship or otherwise?
So that was the only information before we left. Once we were there, Ms. Ernett let us know that she said that she learned that the consulate money had passed through IB, the International Village people, somehow, before it went to the student organization.
So who was involved with that conversation? You, Ms. Ernett, and anybody else?
I can't remember if Mayor Pro Tem Brown was standing there right then or not. I think we were in the hotel lobby, but it was Probably me and Beth and Nikki.
Was it discussed with Ms. Foster or anyone else from the development team?
I didn't have any further conversations with Ms. Foster. I presume Ms. Foster and the development team is where Ms. Ernest had just learned that from.
Did you have any agreement or understanding with the developer or anyone else to affect or influence your vote or decision-making concerning International Village in return for the trip to park?
No.
Do you have any facts to indicate that anyone else did so?
No.
Very good, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Bishop.
I want to ask a couple questions about how we ended up with Wayne State student.
Okay.
And I know that you were in contact with Ms. Arnett about what she was trying to do. Did you know about her efforts with the LDFA regarding the funding?
Well, she was pursuing multiple sources. I remember at one point she was going to talk to METC, to Spark, LDFA, which is a sort of somewhat in between, a funding source kind of like that relates to METC, and Spark is the one who administers it. So those three were ones in the mix. Seemed like the most logical choices. I think those had come up and even proposed earlier in the spring by Councilman Murdoch, like, hey, Spark should fund this trip, etc. So she was following multiple lines, and my question was just, have you figured out the funding source yet? Is this trip happening? Would love to be able to confirm my schedule or clear it off my schedule. So I knew that was among the places that she was pursuing.
Okay. Did she give you any follow-up information with the LDFA, any work that she had done with them?
Well, I know LDFA was one of the ones she was pursuing. That I don't, and there were moments where, hey, maybe it's going to work with MEDC, and I'd say, is it working with MEDC? No, now we're working on Spark, or now we're working on LDFA. I don't know the order of operations, just that those were not what came through in the end.
Now, on the 19th, was there a conversation with the developer and her team about the trip to China at all? That's the council meeting.
Yeah, after the meeting we all went away, barely awake, so I don't think I talked to anyone after. Before the meeting, I think we said hello, because that's when we were being introduced before the meeting. I remember being introduced to members of that team. I don't really recall much more. Again, I talked to them in the car on the way there, and that's where the consulate info had come up.
Is that when it came up?
Well, I had called Amy Foster to ask about if she understood, said I hadn't heard back from the students, I had reached out to the student group, hadn't heard back, and I really wanted to understand, before going on the trip, where Wayne State CSSA gets their funding from. And that's what she told me about the consulate. An application had been made to the consulate, and that, again, jived with what I had learned about how CSSA organizations are often funded.
Can you tell me how she phrased what she told you in that conversation? I know that her English is...
Her English is broken, and I don't recall, especially because of that, the exact phrasing.
So when she told you about the consulate, what was your response to that, and did you do any follow-up?
No, I mean, I said that made sense. I think I told you earlier when I got to the meeting, that was the case, that I sort of learned what the source was. And again, it jived with the research I had done, that consulates are often very tied to CSSA organizations, so that made a whole lot of sense to me.
Did you ever ask Mr. Barr if that would be a conflict with any of our ethics issues?
No, I mean, a government source and a university source seemed really in line with anything I understood, so I didn't think that there was reason for any further questions.
Okay. There was a phrase, the money passed through the developer, that was used.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what Ms. Ernest told me when we were in China.
Yeah, what happened what did, okay.
We were there and I was
Tell
like,
me about it.
Yeah, we were there. And I was like, well, that's not an ideal order of operations that people are questioning. But if it originated from the consulate, like we learned, then that's what is ultimately important.
Do you have any idea? Not that we think that that's actually the case at this point. Okay, but why we didn't know that in advance? Or do you know anything about why we wouldn't know where the student organization got their money?
I don't, I mean, I think it is, people, I'm someone who happens to ask more of those questions. I don't think it's, it's commonplace for most people to, I mean, I don't ask every grant funder where their funding came from, but I tend to research that more than others in the world do. So I thought it would be something that was important, valuable for me to know. I thought the public would probably want to know as well, and that's why I asked.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One last question regarding the LinkedIn communication.
Sure.
Okay. So you sent the question, 2 days later they sent the answer, you were out of town.
Yeah.
And I know based on past history, you don't do much communication when you're out of town. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually staying somewhere with not even cell phone service that night, and then went into conference mode, so it was just sort of quickly checking things here and there.
So when did you get back into town?
I got back late Friday night, like 7 or 8 p.m. Friday night.
So that's what date? I'm sorry.
15th? Somewhere good.
So the 15th?
12th was Tuesday.
Yeah.
The MML conference was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I did other site visits for other work stuff Friday afternoon through early evening, and then I drove back Friday evening.
And is it so you had that message out there, you had an answer back there, okay, and why?
Yeah, I generally get a email. The way I go and log on to LinkedIn is because I get a notification in my email that you have a message, and I didn't see any notification in my email that I had a message. So I didn't have the prompt. So I got back. My wife was leaving on an international business trip that weekend. We were just trying to get errands done, get things done, and then we were moving into 2 nights of council meetings and then international travel. So I didn't see it. And again, the LinkedIn settings I did screenshots of because I, of course, looked at that. Of course, that question would come up, said that it should be verifiable of when something was open or read.
That's all the questions I have this time.
Okay.
Do you still want her, or you want your 2 minutes?
I'm not giving them away yet.
All right. Councilman,
A little follow-up on this. And I have to commend you. You seem to be the only one in this group that seemed to be interested in the source of funding when things came up. But I want to go back. You found out about the consulate funding by phone call to Amy Foster the night of the 19th.
The night of the 19th.
And there, Ms. Ernett said that prior to the meeting, there was kind of a discussion with the developer and her, and I think she mentioned you, where it came up also.
Yeah, I mean, I found out prior to the meeting. We got there, lots of people were coming, the development team was there, we were being introduced and all sort of standing around talking. I don't remember any substance of any further conversation, but there was then a trip 2 days later, and I think we're probably learning, hey, who's going, Wayne from Smith's Brothers who's going, Hal was going, etc. So really sort of introductions. I don't recall any more details. I know I was dealing with screen location until we started.
The city manager said he didn't find out till basically that email from Perkins, I guess, with the inquiry about the console connection and stuff.
Sure.
So I guess my kind of question is, wouldn't have been information that the city manager and city council should have had at that point? Other than that, all we had was the September 11th.
Yeah, I mean, I was answering these questions for myself, so, and I let Ms. Ernett know, and, we were running around crazy in that meeting, and then that meeting went until 1:30 a.m., and then we were trying to make up some sleep and get ready to leave on a trip. So, really, there wasn't really a thought one way or the other. There was trying to get through that meeting and get out of town was as much of a thought that there was. If I had learned that information a week before, probably there would have been more time for discussion, but we were all just trying to manage a large meeting with lots of chance to hear from the public and stay awake at 1:30 a.m.
you never had any communication with the Chinese consulate?
No.
Other than visa stuff?
No contact information, no. Besides that my visa application, and I took my picture wrong the first time.
And you have no knowledge of anybody in the city having contact with the consulate?
No.
In the discussion that happened while you were gone, it seemed that Mr. Ernest had the investors or the developer, contact the consulate and basically didn't get it was kind of a reply where they weren't getting involved in local issues and stuff, but it was no confirmation of the funding.
I wasn't involved in that. She let me know that the funds, that as I mentioned, that the funds had passed, while we were there, she had learned the funds passed through from the consulate to IV, to the student group, and that's really as much as I knew.
And it seems looking back, now, there really wasn't any consulate commitment, at least by, various sources, including one to you.
I read that, and that was shocking and news to me as well. If that happened and where that disconnect happened along the way, it concerns me very much.
All right, let's take that a little further then. How do we deal with a developer that seems to have misled us on funding source and get the trust back?
Go ahead, Mr. Wizard.
I mean, that's not about the fact of this case. That's a great question. I think if that is what the facts of this case. Well, if that's something that the facts of the case uncover, which I've read the things that you have read as well, then that is going to be the question for this body to deal with. I mean, same questions you have.
The answer though?
Following up on that, since you asked that question, that's been, a real concern of mine too, because I did ask at the last council meeting for a complete vetting of the IV LLC and the global, I can't.
Global Capital.
The global, Global
Capital.
Yes, right, global capital. That we need to really know who we are, and I want to know.
Point of order.
Are you willing to?
I really want to keep us on the hearing about the trip to China.
Yeah. This is about the trip to China. If it comes out that IV was, or the global people, if they were truly involved in laundering money, circumventing the right path of the money, would you be open to saying that we cannot do business with them?
I think there are many questions that remain, and I want to see what the facts uncover about those. And if there was some knowing deception that happened, then I'm going to have very real concerns about working with anyone who deceived us along the way.
Okay. Coming back, I want to ask you, when did you really know who was going to be going on the trip?
Let's see. So in May, after the council meeting, very informally, like maybe there'll be a trip. I think in late June, Beth had asked me, okay, if you look forward in several months, like when could you actually go? And I, made some suggestions about what's no-goes or could-goes. I don't recall about that, if at that time there was a discussion about who. I think probably in mid-July when there were, was probably when it would have been known. That's when we came in to do our visas, to say, if a trip actually happens, here's who would be going. So I think I knew then of who the people were, which have been the four of us from the city. So probably mid-July when the request to come in and fill out visa applications, just because that can take unknown periods of time. FYI, you can't smile, have glasses, or have your ears covered, which I have in all pictures of me, so I had to redo them, so it might took a lot longer. So mid-July would have been when, who was going if it were gonna actually happen, got figured out. But it never actually got confirmed until, again, there was a funding source that I learned on it around September 6th.
Did it occur to you back in June when Beth first started talking about the possibility of the trip to send out a quest for all of council about who might want to go?
I thought she had talked to council members about their interest or not. So I didn't ask about who or why the different people had chosen or said they could go or were interested. So I presume Beth had followed up with people, because at the council table, certain people said yay, nay, maybe. So I thought that there was follow-up with people about whether they wanted to, could, etc. go.
Well, there wasn't any follow-up with me, so I don't know about the other council members, but it was always, not that I, really wanted to go to China, but just openness and transparency with the rest of council to build more of a cohesive working group for council. And so I was concerned about that.
I asked this at some point along the way, and I couldn't tell you exactly when during the summer, were other council members informed. I think she mentioned it had come up at a town hall. That would have been before the millage, so that would have been later July or early August. So that would have been right when sort of feast applications were going in, etc. So I thought people were, that conversations were happening if it came up at that forum. But I did ask her probably at least once, I'm guessing around then, of were other council members sort of aware that what we had all been invited to was, looked like it may progress if a funding source could be found, and if the developer was still, they were in their due diligence period, right? So if there's any point where they could have said, hey, we're not going to keep pursuing the project, which is another reason I presumed it would have been pending for quite a while.
Okay, well, no, it did come up. It came up at the town hall meeting that I hosted in July, and the question was, and I answered, because someone asked the question while I had the mic, and I answered and said no, that no one was going. But then Ms. Arnett, corrected me and said that some were going, and that was the last I heard of it until actually September 11th. So you're saying that during that time it didn't occur to you to kind of take a poll amongst council?
I didn't know that council wasn't informed. Okay. Yeah, so.
All right, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Ross.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this has just gone on so long, might be repeating questions. Just, what is your understanding now of where the money originated or came from, or? Well,
I'm sharing what I was told, and I think, which was, Amy Foster told me on September 19th that it came from originated from the consulate. I received a letter that it came from Wayne State. Beth had mentioned that Wayne State, she had seen a copy of a check that went from Wayne State to the travel agency. So it was Wayne State is who granted us the scholarships, but the origin, I was told on the 19th, of those funds are from the consulate. But, that may not be true now, and that was again confirmed while we were in China when Ms. Arnett said sort of how the money had passed, but that it still had originated at the consulate. And I think we are all doing this investigation is happening because we're trying to figure out what the answer is to that ultimate question. So I don't have a clear answer of where the Wayne State funds originated, just like no one does, or else there would not be an investigation.
Did you ever read the LinkedIn message?
Yeah,
okay.
That's all I have.
Could we have, okay.
That's all I have.
And please, keep down, you have no other questions? Okay. I believe we have some time left. Do you have a question?
I do not.
Okay, Councilmember Murdoch? No. Okay. Councilmember Vogt? Okay, and I don't even thank you very much. Do you have a closing statement?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Can you tell me what the next, is what happens next in this hearing?
Okay. Yes.
Right now?
Mr. Duchesne.
So I believe council reserved the option to call back witnesses, so if you have an interest in doing that, you can exercise that. Otherwise, it's audience participation and good night.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, we're gonna have to have a conversation about this among council, and some of the questions we're gonna have are related to staffing questions, and what do we do about how we have this conversation?
I think it'd be best, so you believe you're gonna have further questions after this meeting for the people questioned, or other people? I guess that's my question.
Yes, always.
All of those,
Okay.
okay. So again, this proceeding is at council's discretion. We have in the investigation in general. We do have an RFP that is being, as I said, I think the response to that is due on Friday. It's possible we could coordinate council's questions with that. That might be the best manner to proceed.
So you're suggesting that we hold that we close this session, we wait for more information? Okay. Then, how do we handle that?
So what I'm saying is, if when there is, and this is just a suggestion, again, it's completely up to council. When there is a special counsel selected, that we coordinate your council's specific questions into the matter with that special counsel, so that the special counsel can follow up on the questions. Does that make sense? I'm not saying wait for the report to come out and wait months from now or whatever, and then wait for the report and then answer questions. What I'm saying is coordinate with special counsel to get the answers to those specific questions answered.
So essentially what you're asking is that council would give you the specific questions that we have, so that
the method of delivery is completely up to council.
That's not what I'm asking.
Okay, what are you
I'm not
asking?
being clear, I completely
sorry.
apologize. Okay, once we've gathered all the information,
Okay, after
the special counsel.
Sure, okay.
What is our procedure at that point?
Oh, okay, so after the report is commenced, council should review that, and then I would assume usually there's going to be some sort of kind of legal advice in that as well. We'll interpret that, and I think there should be a communication between council and the legal officer at that point.
Another public meeting. And would that be closed session or open session?
I can't answer that question right now.
Okay, because there's staffing, there's staff, HR policies and other things involved, yeah.
Because there's so many possible outcomes, I just can't give you a clear answer.
Can you explore that for us? So that
we will.
Okay,
sure.
Thank you.
There was a brief memo on that on Friday. I don't know if you got that.
So when we get our questions together, this is my last question, I promise. When we get our questions.
I didn't mean to talk on this.
No, it's okay. When we get our questions together for the outside counsel.
Sure.
Okay. Because I do have questions.
I'm sure you
Okay,
do.
all we have so far really is a report in a newspaper.
Right.
Okay, so we really have no actual evidence yet. Okay. So once we get some actual facts that are verifiable, so to get those facts, when should we get our questions to you? That's the question I want to ask.
I would wait until the special counsel is selected, and then we can communicate with special counsel how they want to proceed. Does that make sense?
Yes. That's all.
Councilman Rivera.
Yeah, the RFPs are due Friday.
Yeah.
When the city council going to select?
As soon as possible. We put the RFP out at we tried to get it out that day, or the following day, and it came out, I think, the following Thursday or something.
And I put it that way
Wednesday.
because at the town hall, Councilman had the city manager indicated he was going to select you.
Well, the resolution adopted by council was that the city manager, with the guidance of the attorney, would select the special counsel. If council has guidance otherwise, I would.
I mean, it's our investigation.
It is agreed, yeah.
You're saying it is council's decision?
What I'm saying is the resolution passed by council already to issue the RFP was that the manager with coordination from the city attorney select the the special counsel. I have no objection to bringing it back to council if that's council's request, but. And as far as when that could be, we could shoot for a Tuesday, but that might be cutting it close.
Or delays. I would like to at least be consulted. I don't know what council would vote if it came back, but I'd like to have the idea from the city council, city manager and yourself, what would have council money be before the final.
Before entering into a contract. We could bring a contract for city council review.
Is that likely to be Tuesday, the next meeting?
The contract, probably not.
Is there anything else?
I mean, we're dealing with an attorney, negotiating a contract with an attorney.
Damn it.
No offense to myself or you.
No offense to you. So, I lost track of my question.
Sorry.
So, no, do you have any advice concerning whether council should be discussing any issues for tonight, publicly or otherwise, any limitations? Is it advised that we make no discussion and decisions until, et cetera?
My advice is that council make no decisions tonight. If council wants to discuss, my concern is that you're going to make determinations on fact before you have all the facts in front of you. So I would suggest against that as well, but
It's my opinion that it's ill-advised to have any conversations about this until we have the investigation complete. That includes public comments, responses to emails, statements, anything else. I think it is very inappropriate for us to do that individually or otherwise. And I think we should not break that rule unless we consulted with you and discussed it among ourselves before anyone does it. And I am very strongly of that opinion in this case. This is not a normal political process.
that is, if that's the will of council, I don't see. If that is a will of council for a determination to make, then I don't, off the top of my head, have an issue with that being a decision of council. But I don't like responding to that kind of stuff on the fly.
I'm stating my
that
very
opinion is
adamant opinion, personally, politically, and legally. I'm advising council first. That's my legal opinion for my own purposes.
Councilman DeVoe has felt that he would like to see council not make any statements, not make any responses to email or other social media. How does council feel about that? Let's discuss it.
Yeah, I agree with the whole idea that we should not make judgments, but if someone's going to ask me about what happened tonight, I'm not going to say, I can't tell you until the investigation's over.
Well, I agree with that. I'm talking about the content of the investigation, and we're going, thought processes and so forth. So you're making the correct distinction, I agree with that.
My advice then, council or council member, might be to formulate what exactly is, and be very specific as to the guidance that you'd like council to consider. Before you set up a situation where we're going down another investigation.
Could you pull the mic up a little bit before you?
So if you're very specific about what you want to direct council to share, my advice would be to be very specific in that direction from council before we wind up in another situation where there's been
Let me
a violation of
clarify my own point of view.
Sure.
Is, again, the contents of the investigation are thinking about the investigation, testimony, we shouldn't be making any decisions because you don't have all the evidence. What we might decide is, as distinguished from what is the process, where are we in the steps,
Sure.
What's coming next, process, yes, procedure, yes. Thoughts about the specifics, thoughts about the individuals, thoughts, potential conclusions, what our thinking is along the lines of what the investigation means so far, or where it's heading in terms of conclusions. In other words, we're the decision makers, we're the jury. We should not be deliberating as a jury before the trial is over, before the investigation begins. We should not be discussing before that investigation is over. We should not be declaring any tentative positions or thoughts about it until the trial investigation. Perfect analogy, the trial, the jury, and the trial.
Are you under the impression that the investigation has already begun?
Yes, right here.
Councilmember, it has begun.
We have more to go. We have potentially outside counsel if we decide before that, potential further investigation and possible follow-up testimony of these witnesses, potentially others. We're not sure where we're going yet. We might stop here, we might not.
As you haven't noticed, this was a public meeting. And I think it got broadcast all over the place on Facebook. It's a little hard to say, we don't want to talk about that stuff.
No, it isn't. Sorry, no,
Absolutely,
Peter.
sorry.
No, it is not.
I mean, you guys want to spend a whole lot of money on an investigation that's going nowhere, or going to basically, I think this, you know, the information we have, I think tells the story that what happened. Our question is, what do we do from now, from here? And,
Council, if I could interject, are we done with the questioning portion of the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right. Councilman, Miss McMullen, if you like, Mayor, you're welcome to stay.
No, I said you're all set.
No, you're
You don't
welcome
have
to stay.
Okay.
Okay,
You don't have to.
would you please notify the others that they're welcome to come into the room for the second audience participation.
This is not the question.
They're welcome to come in. The questioning portion of this meeting is over. We welcome you. In fact, you all could have been in. I checked with Mr. Duchesne from the beginning, and you were welcome to be in for the entire meeting. So would you? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now is a good time if you need to take a few stretch breaks.
Will there be a public comment section coming up?
We're not done.
No, we're not done. We're in the middle of the Yeah, we're going to have audience participation, but while we're waiting for the others to come into the room, I just wanted to offer you the opportunity to take a stretch break. Please do not start milling around. We don't want to prolong our meeting any longer than we have to.
I know, that's the next one. Also, yeah, but if she gets fired, there's no way that can.
I don't know, did you
Even both of the town halls, like, we'll be going to take action, which could just mean holding them to a higher standard and building it more accountability measures into the development plan. And I was like, well, yeah, you're going to have to do that because they've already found loopholes and exploited us according to the measures we already have in place. So I want you to recognize that. And she just said, but she did.
I'm not in the other one. But I figured that there were conversations to have with them.
Thanks for bringing snacks. Did you bring snacks?
Yeah, she used it to get a bunch of tacos.
No, I'm looking for food in the because I'm really fucking tired. We have a snack budget. Snack budget? Yeah, there's a snack budget. Because I still haven't used the money that people Venmoed me, because Shane used the coupon or rebate at Costco, just like half. So what's more about what just happened? And then it sounded like there's like 3 or 4 eyes. I thought the mayor was supposed to speak.
That's what it says on the agenda.
Yeah. Is it remarks from me? Yeah. It's only if she wants to, but I just have her do that. It always says that, but there's, it's so much on here. It's like if there's any council member having a remark. Usually when it says that, it's not even just the mayor, it's like any council member might have a remark does. No. I'm going to go get food.
So sorry, Kim. I know.
I don't know. Anyway, you can leave one of that one if you want to. But there was just like conversation during this happening, which maybe there was all cameras too.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I have nicotine gum.
You have what?
Yay! Nicotine gum. Bye, y'all.
We're now ready for audience participation, yes? Yes, we are. We've been inviting them if they want to come.
It's not audience participation? Not yet. We're still in conversation.
Well,
we have a discussion on the floor.
Sorry.
What's our question? Dan's question.
We're discussing a question about not making public comments during the course of the investigation about contents of the investigation and our thought process about it. We conclusion to a jury trial and a jury. This is not a political process. It's a process of determining facts and making a judgment as a matter of rule or law about matters that affect relationship problems, employment issues, and obviously.
Can you talk into the mic, please?
I'm sorry, the mics don't work. I'll speak
it's
up.
working.
Thank you.
I don't want to completely start over, but I think maybe I have to. I was making reference to the fact that council should not make public comments about their thought processes or potential conclusions on this subject matter, this investigation, what our intentions are and the details of what we're going to ask or where we're heading with it, those kinds of things, because we are like a jury in a jury trial. We don't make our decision, we don't debate it, we don't disclose it until all the evidence is in, we've had our deliberation, and then we make our declaration. There's many reasons for this, including fundamental due process of law, equal protection of law, just fundamental fairness. People's lives could potentially be at stake. The city could be sued by people here or some people who have not been here if we start prejudicing conclusions before we get all the evidence. This is not a political process, so it's not subject to the same rules. We have to be a little more tight-lipped about it. And again, distinguishing as Councilmember Rev, so we're not talking about what the process is, where we are in the discussion. Those things are appropriate. We can tell people where we're at, what the schedule or the plan is from here, but not talk about who's right, who's wrong, who did what wrong, who got it right, and those kinds of specifics. If you think otherwise, I think you are just flat out wrong. I think if you think about it in the sense of fairness, if you're one of those people sitting behind the chair, you're the developer sitting out there, you don't think you've done anything wrong. Or who knows, there might be someone else we haven't come across yet who could be the subject of the investigation. Until we know all the facts, those people could claim very seriously to be prejudiced improperly. You could destroy someone's life. It's accepted that you make comments or criticisms in a political sphere, but this is not that. I'll stop there.
Anyone else to respond to that or comment?
I haven't got a clue what he's talking about. Everything we do is political. That's why we're politicians.
I can talk to you afterwards if you want more specifics. We can debate it.
I don't debate it. I mean, we just had a public hearing, everybody saw it, and you say we're not going to be able to talk about that?
Well, when you're a jury, Peter, if you're a jury in a courtroom, that's public too, but the jury doesn't talk about it in public, and they don't talk about it between themselves until all the case is done. Then when they have all the evidence and it's finished, then you discuss it. I'm sorry. I think it is, I'm not going to get more adamant than that. I think you need to just think about it in those terms. What does a person who is wrong, if we make a wrong decision, or if something is declared earlier that turns out to be wrong, turns out later to be proven to be wrong because later evidence comes in, how are they going to think about it? And what might they do in terms of suing the city or suing other people? Think in those terms.
I guess I have a question for the city attorney. All right, if Councilmember Vogt is likening us to a jury, so that means we cannot, talk to the, if we choose to proceed with hiring an outside investigator, if we are the jury, does that mean we cannot ask them to find out certain facts?
Can't talk to each other either.
I mean, fundamentally, what he's saying as far as not making judgments, we agree on that part, but do you see, do you see us, if you see our role as a jury, then I don't understand how we can communicate with the investigator.
So your role is the fact finder in this matter. So essentially right now you're doing the investigation to determine what the facts are.
So you disagree with him calling us a jury?
It's an analogy, Councilmember, and I'm not sure that that's completely off base as far as trying to determine what.
Well, it's a weird analogy because we're talking about we're talking about a different type of process. He's saying this is a legal process. It's not an analogy if you're calling this a legal process. There's a jury, there's prosecutors, there's defense.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to understand information. That's what I see our role as. We're trying to understand information.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same as a jury.
Maybe more akin to a grand jury.
Sure. A grand jury might be a better analogy. Maybe, I don't know. But as far as the legal implications of discussing this process, and maybe not even the process, but the material in itself is not a matter of research, then if that's a question from council, I'd like the opportunity to do so.
Asking questions of the investigator to look into for us is not debating or making decisions about
no, it's
the ultimate
indicating what
conclusion,
you're,
or it's not making judgments. It's making further the inquiry. So that's a very good, again, another very good question by Councilmember Robb that helps to clarify this. Those are still distinct, different processes.
If I understand your concern correctly, it is communication amongst each other or specific forms of communication that might express or in fact bias this team. Is that correct? If council is interested in researching that, I can't make any promises that there's actual cases to this effect. If they are, I can attempt to do that.
Would you like them to do that? Council?
So I agree to a great degree with Mr. Vogt. And I've made it clear that I am waiting until I understand all the facts, until I draw any conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. There's too much at stake for the city and too much at stake for some of the individuals for me to do otherwise. Okay. I think that's ethical. I think that's reasonable, and that's what my constituents would want me to do. Okay. This is, that's how I'm interpreting my job here. Okay. And I truly mean it. There's too much at stake for the city and for these individuals. I'm very respectful of that.
What I can offer now is okay, I'm going to move into hypotheticals, which I don't want to do, right? But if I'm somebody representing an adverse party to the city in what might be a final result of this investigation, and I'm the attorney representing that party, and I find that there's been public statements reaching a conclusion before the completion of the investigation, you're better sure I'm going to bring that up during whatever proceeding we're in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I don't want to move to hypotheticals, but that's the only way I could think to communicate that.
Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
I might suggest we take some time to think about it, but it's up to the council, obviously.
Well, I understand, understand that, but again, key was, seeing the need for it to be in effect after this meeting here. So that's why I was asking if you want to put it in the form of a motion, and we'll see if there's a support for it, and
I thought of in those terms, but I would hope that we wouldn't have to have a resolution, but maybe that is a good idea. So, the resolution would be that council members should not discuss the contents of the investigation, the information or evidence obtained so far, their thoughts or conclusions concerning the investigation and its contents, issues such as the credibility or accuracy of any of the testimony. Council, do you have
So
any
you're
other
looking
suggestions?
at credibility, you're looking for weight of the evidence. Is that the route you're trying to go down?
All those issues,
Okay.
as distinguished from really talking about where we are in the process, what the future steps are. I don't know, does that answer everyone's questions?
Councilmember Roberts.
Well, that's why he's making a motion, so it's the second.
Right, it has to be second.
We'll
Is
get
there a
that.
second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by moved by Councilmember Vogt, seconded by Councilmember Bashir.
I mean, it's, you know, my first.
So now we're open for discussion.
My first comment is, it seems overly broad to begin with, because it includes the evidence that we all just heard and saw, and we're in a 273-page packet, you know, so I'm not sure, I mean, conclusions, thoughts, and related things like that, I think that's the ethical thing that we're trying to address here. But I don't think the evidence or the process, that's all public information.
All right, well, think for half a minute.
Want to hear more comments before you?
Well, let's take it one at a time. What I was talking about previously was we didn't want public comments on those things. We did not want any kind of public comments or communication on the individual's thoughts or conclusions about those things. Again, just like in a trial, things may be known to the public who testified what, but what the juror thinks about it is what I'm looking for. We don't want that discussed or publicized.
So you're talking about weight, credibility of the evidence, and conclusions drawn from it. Is that the type of information you're looking to research?
Well, I think I also referenced.
I don't want to use the word evidence because, again, we're not in the trial, and this is not judicial or quasi-judicial.
Right, right. But the thought is to protect fairness.
Sure.
Well, I'll stop it.
Any further discussion?
Like Councilmember Richard said, what his original motion was, I don't know if we have that captured in text. I mean, it was unbelievably broad, it included everything. When you start with the investigation of the information that we heard tonight, I agree. We should not be impugning everyone. I'm not going to go on Facebook tonight and say Dan Bose is a criminal. You know, that would be wrong. That's absolutely wrong, and I agree that council should do that. And I would hope we wouldn't need a resolution that says council will not impugn people who spoke tonight. But as far as whenever you talk about the information that was discussed tonight, I can't agree with that because that's all public information in the public setting. If you want to add on to that and say, oh, we shouldn't talk about, I thought what this person said was this, or what this person said was this. Yeah, you're qualifying that. I agree. We shouldn't be making public statements where we qualify stuff, but that's not what your motion. Your motion was unbelievably broad.
Not necessarily so. This is not a process the council has ever dealt with before. It's not an issue we've ever dealt with before, in my knowledge. It's a unique situation. It requires a unique approach that protects fairness, protects the innocent, and protects the guilty until they're determined by all the. So that's my thoughts. And I'm not going to say anymore. I'll let you all decide.
She seconded. Councilwoman. Any more discussion?
I'll offer a friendly amendment, okay? That the resolution be limited to discussion of weight, conclusions, what was it that you said, Mr.
Credibility.
Credibility, okay. Limited to those items, that's reasonable and balanced in the face of a public process like this.
Weight, so we're talking weight, credibility, what they want? Conclusions?
Conclusions.
Is there a second to that friendly amendment?
Would you friendly say Mr. Vogt?
Yeah.
I respectfully decline to accept it.
Call the question.
Okay. The question's been called.
I'm not sure yet. So,
His original amendment was city council should not discuss contents, evidence, thoughts, conclusions, contents, accuracy of testimony, or weight of evidence.
I can attempt to craft that based on minutes, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that was.
Okay, would you call the roll? The question's been called.
Councilmember Murdoch?
No.
Councilmember Richardson.
We'll come back to me.
Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Vogt.
In case I wasn't allowed to have a microphone.
Councilmember Vogt.
Yes.
Councilmember Bashir.
No.
And Councilmember Richardson.
Wow. I agree with the principle, but I do think it needs to be narrowed down, so I'll vote.
So the motion fails.
So the point is made regardless. I hope you all seriously keep that all in mind.
The other opportunities to bring in whatever you want.
We can't hear back.
We can't hear.
Sorry, there'll be other opportunities.
Y'all whispering, you gotta do something.
But it's 11:30 and I'd like to move on to audience participation. Just a suggestion.
Any other comments before we move on? Okay, we will start audience participation. The young lady there, your name is Julie? Julia. Julia. Thank you for calling me up. It's not true.
My name is Julie Bailey. I live at 401 West Michigan Avenue. You all here on the body, the governing body, I heard this last segment tell you, caution you, suggest that you don't make conclusions or speak about things like that. And I think that's a good thing. But I, out here as a citizen, I have already jumped to one major conclusion. And I'm going to speak on it. I, in all my years of paying attention to politics, going to meetings, working on issues, and reading history, I'm appalled at the lack of professionalism of the people that were here in the hearing tonight. I'm appalled that this process seems a bit flawed, but I realize we got to work with each other and help it along. But I'm really, really appalled that people don't understand that a city manager is called a manager because they're supposed to manage things. That someone who's an economic development director can speak in such a way that we get really nothing from them. And you can't plead both being professional and not giving opinions. You can't say, I heard people say, I heard Beth say, I feel and I think, and those are opinions. But then not answered many, many questions by saying she didn't want to give opinions. And she's on her phone right now. I don't like it. I'm your citizen and I don't like it. You got to go to China. At least put down your phone and listen to your people. Yes, I'm talking. It's public comments.
You don't get to speak to.
I get to speak whatever I want in my 3 minutes. And I feel that you didn't give much real answering tonight.
Julia, could you please not make it personal?
It is? Okay, yeah, well, I'll remember that when I have to move. I'll remember all of this when I have to move. I see a city council that needs to step up some of the boundary issues, step up some of the clarity, step up some of the process and how things are done, including how we invite and seduce developers. I also see a team of people that took a trip that were not as professional as they needed to have been to be accountable to us.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Melke, 3302 Chittister, apartment 409. And I agree with Councilman Vogt. I don't think this should play out your opinions on Facebook. It's one thing to talk about the process. I think that's not fair to the people who work for the city. I mean, you guys know, and I already heard you say that you already decided. You already decided what happened. So why are you even here? Why'd you come? I heard people complain all evening about why the council, why the people who recused themselves weren't in the room. And never once did you say, it's because they recused themselves, they're not supposed to be in the room. Instead, you let them think they just didn't want to be here and listen. And that was wrong. And you said that you asked the Attorney DeShape about if they could be in here, but you never told us you asked that. Did you tell them? It's like, you guys have to be fair. You know, you may think you know what happened, but unless we have all the evidence, how do you know? That's all I have to say.
I will respond to that when we get through. Okay, Ray?
Hi, I'm Ray and I live in Ypsi. I just wanted to throw out a few questions that I still had as we're in the investigation process. I've had time to read quite a bit of the packet. First I wanted to say that I see that our city manager was one of the people being questioned tonight, so I'm not sure if he's one of the right people to be in the process of choosing the council, because it just seems ethically not quite right to me. No offense or anything, it just doesn't seem quite right. The next thing I'm confused about, when Mayor Edmonds was researching the CSSA, and you were trying to figure out who to contact there, you looked online, I did the same looking and found that I think it's P-Fing Lee is the person at the CSSA, but I'm confused about why you didn't check with Beth Ernat first, because she already had the contact of Lin Peng Zhu. So I don't know why you didn't say, hey, who's the contact? That I'm still confused about that. I'm very concerned that the CSSA just suddenly contacted us and we never questioned, how did you find out that we needed this trip? Like that right there is a red flag to me. Oh, the people are just saying, hey, we're going to give you the money. So that was strange to me. The next thing, let's see here. Okay, I had a chance to read a lot of the packet, and the screenshot for the LinkedIn message that gives the time and date stamp of when you read it, which was, you said, I couldn't find it in the packet. It said screenshot attached. So I couldn't find in the packet where it shows when it was opened. There was something on page 59 of the packet that was a LinkedIn something, but it was so blurry, I literally couldn't see what it was. So if there is a screenshot that shows when you open that message, we want to see it, because maybe it's in the packet and I didn't see it, but I can't find that screenshot. Okay, the next thing. Mayor Emmons, you said that, I think it was Councilman Rob asked you, where's your understanding of where the money came from? And you didn't give a clear answer there, and that concerned me, because you have a LinkedIn message from the CSSA saying it came from Global Capital. So I didn't understand why.
Please.
Oh, I'm sorry. What am I doing? Oh, don't talk to us. Oh, okay.
No, direct your.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that. Okay. So, I'm so sorry. Okay. I didn't understand why the mayor didn't say, well, I know now it came from Global Capital. Sorry, I didn't understand that part. Okay, and then, so then I was confused too when Beth Ernat said she didn't understand that the consulate funded it until they were in China or until the 19th. But in the packet, I read a statement from Beth Ernat that said the mayor told her it came from the consulate, and the mayor researched it and verified it herself. That's almost a direct quote from, it's somewhere between page 111 and 113.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Isaac Lyon, South Hamilton. I would like to request that the council do a motion to reopen the questioning and ask Mayor Amanda Edmonds the following question. On September 5th at the City Council meeting, you said, on September 19th, there's a presentation by the developer. That is all I know. And to ask, at that time, did you know about the trip? Was that true? I think that, to me, I mean, reading the emails, there's more knowledge than that there was a presentation on September 19th, on September 5th. I would really like it if you reopen the questioning to ask that one question. And that is all I asked. I think I had one extension to the question, which the word I forgot. I'm really sorry for taking such a second. Because after that quote, was that true? Did you know that a purchase agreement was being presented? And did you know about the trip? Thank you. So if you want the question to be reiterated.
Thank you. Next, Quinn. Mr. Nathan, you're next.
Hey, I'm Quinn Phillips. I live in Ypsi. My question was similar to Ray's, which is that when the mayor was answering, what was your understanding of where the money came from when all is said and done? You know, she mentioned kind of the whole process of like first we thought it came, you know, or the consulate and then through the CSSA, but she didn't mention the LinkedIn message. And who knows? You know, they could be lying. Who knows who this person was that sent the message? But she did have confirmation, whether or not she read it prior to the trip, that the CSSA is saying that it was global capital specifically. And I think what really bothers me about the situation and makes it seem like things aren't on the up and up as far as what she has said is that in her public statement after getting back from China, she said that she had no knowledge that the developer paid for it, and that's quite frankly not true. And if that's something that she did have knowledge of and she just said under oath that she doesn't, that's super concerning. And I think a lot of her constituents, you know, really value her transparency and honesty and integrity. And I just think that calls a lot of that into question. So I really want to know, you know, when she read that message, I would love to see the screenshot. And then if she wanted to amend her statement that she made tonight, that she really did not know that the funding went to the CSSA directly from the developer. Like, Global Capital LLC was on Amy Shu's email signature. Like, it's not like it wasn't known. It was in the presentations to council. So I just think that was pretty obvious. And, you know, quite frankly, it's like a smoking gun in this situation that she knew that that happened. Since that is where the money came from, as far as we know at this point, I realize more investigation has to be done. That means that the entire trip, according to your own city attorney, was unethical and illegal. Whether or not, you know, everybody was aware of that, which it seems like there are some people who knew more than others. So, you know, I just really want clarity on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Nathan.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Phillips, 509 North Washington Street here in Ypsi, Michigan. Resident here now about 10 years. I'm apologizing here for being ignorant. You know, I'm not stupid. I just, you know, don't know a lot of things. You know, so I depend on council. I depend on our mayor, our lawyers, you know, to do the right thing for us as citizens, you know. I'm not natural born Ypsilantian, you know. I only came here because my wife had cancer, and a lot of people know that story, you know. When I came here, this waterworks street down here was in talkings and stuff, and I came out here. First time I started talking was I talked for the trees, yeah. I said, don't be cutting down all those trees down there. You know, there's a burial grounds down there. You know, and I've been watching this going on for a long time. To have, you know, those sacred grounds being given for money or any other reason to the Chinese, just, you know, we don't feel right about it. You know, whatever is going on here with who did what, where the money came from, you know. I'm sorry for that, for everybody involved, you know. Transparency, all that should be done, you know. And I really hope that the council can get to the bottom of it, you know, with the truth, you know. Let us citizens know what's going on here, you know. Really am disappointed in the way things are happening here, you know. Like I say, I might be ignorant, but, you know, I know when something stinks.
Anyone else?
Should be after that.
This is Kyle Hunter. I stay I moved. I stay at 430 South Adams Street, Ypsi Landing, 4197. I just wanted to reiterate that we should probably not go forward with the International Village deal. It seems to be the wisest choice given all the inconsistencies and miscommunications and outright, just it's a mess. So we should probably consider other options. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Nathaniel?
Nathaniel Romero, 413 West Cross. I think I would like to reiterate what Kyle said. I just don't think we should go through with this development. I feel like the process is irremediable. It was flawed from the beginning. Yeah, there's not that much that I can add to it. I expect in the coming weeks and months that we will clearly articulate the number of issues that have been had with this development. And I look forward to the formation of a community benefits ordinance that will prevent something like this from happening again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Your name and address, please.
Stephen Wilcoxon, 1728 Whittier. There seems to be some discussion at the end of this council meeting about whether or not you would go further with an investigation with a private firm. I heard that question get raised a couple times. I encourage you to keep with that and actually engage that process. And not let it die here.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close audience participation. And Ms. Melfi, to respond to you, all of the people that were a part of the hearing sat at your, they recused themselves. We did not ask them to leave.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, I misunderstood.
No, I said that when everybody here wanted to know why they weren't in the room, nobody up there said it's because they recused themselves. And that seems unfair.
It seems unfair that they recused.
No, that you didn't say that's why they weren't here. Because we were questioning all evening.
They were welcome to be here. They chose to recuse themselves.
But it's important that you let us know that, is what she's saying.
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't, but they chose to do that themselves. I didn't know that they were not going to come in the room or not going to stay in the room after they did. I didn't know. The clerk had to tell me that they were here, okay, because I didn't see anyone before. The only one I saw was Mr. McClary, so, okay. And Mr. Walcott, yes, we will go on with the investigation, but it will be through the legal firm that we are hiring.
Right, I had heard some question that may not be the case.
No, we will, they have until, the legal firms have until Friday the 13th at 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock to get in their RFPs, and once they do, then the decision will be made after that.
And that decision will be made by you, or that will be made by the city manager?
I'll let Mr. Duchesne answer that, please.
What's the question?
The question is who's going to make the decision to select the firm that will do the further investigation? Yes, please.
I remember there was time. There was a resolution. Will that be revisited?
Okay, so that's it.
We have
Okay,
another meeting next Tuesday.
okay. We need to leave this place. Does somebody have that?
Will the meeting next Tuesday also be open to the public?
Oh, yes,
I move to adjourn.
thank you. All of our meetings are open to the public.
I move to
Is there a second?
Right now, tomorrow night at 6:30, there's a town hall tomorrow at 6:30, right
Another day, another crisis. See you at the next round. As they go.
Just want a lot of that Chinese lady out.
Great to see you, Koran. Nice to meet you.